101. I know that the pronunciation might be a bit difficult for some people, but pronounce it however you want to pronounce it. The important thing is you be able to understand. So today we're actually going to introduce Daipods, not really diving deeper into it. As from tomorrow, I want you to understand what Daipods is all about. It's something that is very important. We have done KodeCamp for this is the fifth year, and we have realized that a lot of people have issues because they are not really tech savvy. Let me use that word. Tech savvy meaning you understand everything. They struggle with. We started with Slack, now Discord, a lot of things. Also, some people that are really let me put in quotes advanced, like that claim that they're advanced. We actually realize that the foundation is lacking. So today I'm going to start it from scratch, because what we are assuming in code camp is that for Daipods specifically, is that we want to put everybody on the same page. So the assumption is that you have not touched a system before, no matter how long you have used it. So if we are taking you backwards, we apologize in advance. But it might do you good to be actually hang around to see what it's all about. Because I've seen a lot of people trying to, say, oh, we know all these things. But at the end of the day, they realize that it is really very difficult to, kind of detail what you know and identify what you don't know. I teach master students, I teach PhD students, and I'm talking about people that have done computer science and all that. So there's a lot. The question is, what did you miss in this whole journey? And that's what we are trying to clean up, so that when we produce people at the end of CodeCamp, we'll be able to beat our chest and say, yeah, this person is a tech guy, you know. So there are a lot of tech, there are different categories of tech people, both um coding and non-coding, but that's why we are here, and we are going to start immediately. I'm going back to the beginning, okay? So forgive me if this might sound a little bit backward. So I'm going to start with a question, right? It's a revolutionary journey, and we need to understand that we came from somewhere. So before we talk about Daipods, we need to talk about where we came from and ask ourselves where we are going. So I am going back to the basic beginning. You understand? So if you have not touched a system before, don't worry. We are here for you. That is why we are putting up this class. For those that might think, oh, this is a little bit fundamental for me, well, I think again, I would say probably you might need to hang around. Okay? So this whole thing, tech thing, started from somewhere. And that is what we are going to delve in today. We are just going to talk about the revolutionary journey we now delve into the actual Daipods tomorrow. Okay. The reason why we are doing this is that I want to build confidence, so that there is nothing about this tech that anybody that is passing through this particular journey. That's why we are looking at this. So let me start. Okay, the first industrial revolution. Okay, I'm like I said, I'm going back to ground zero. If there's anything like sub-zero or maybe negative, that's where we are starting from. Okay. So you know that humanity will have moved from one level of civilization to another, and that is what I want to clear out. So let's look at the first industrial revolution. You will hear that. If you have not heard about it, pay attention. If you heard about it, probably this might be a refresher course. So man has moved through various phases of industrial revolution. Okay, so we need to look at it. The timeline might differ a bit according to literature, but I think the concept and understanding is the same. So let us look at this guy here. Some people might be asking, sheep, okay, or lamb, whatever you call it. Why are we starting from here? Very soon you understand. Everything that you're talking about, if I tell you that everything you talk about tech today started from what you have, the picture you have. I know a lot of people will be like, how? Explain further and everything. But you are going to see that story pan out. Now, this particular animal is good for two things, right? One, the meat, of course, we all eat meat. And two, the fur. So this is not the first animal, but at least it kind of grows a lot of furs, right? And what you are seeing here is they are actually skinning it so that you can take that fur, and you might be asking yourself, what is it used for? Your guess is as good as mine. It is a raw material that is used for what? Clothing. And now from the fur, you make a lot of, you kind of process them into ropes, and then you knit them together. So of course, the end product is what we wear today, and we call it clothes. Okay, so this is actually how we all started. Okay, now let us ask ourselves a question. What if we remove these first two? Let me replace it again. You see, the first two, um is there anything that can be used in place of that? Now the question is that how many animals can we, you know can we use to clothe everybody in the world as at the time? The answer is limited. First of all, it consumes food, you need to feed it, you need to take care of it. Sometimes disease will come, clear the thing. Sometimes the fur might be infected and all those kind of things. So there is limitation. And you know that man is always seeking for solutions. He's always seeking for a better ways of doing things. Now, let me replace this first with another picture. If you look at this, you see that they realize that there is a plant that can do the same thing, just like the sheep. Okay, that's fine. And of course, if people know about the whole slave trade and all that, the more your farm, okay, the wealthier you are. So you can, trade your commodity, go buy more slaves, get them to your farm, expand your capacity, because apart from edibles like the food that people eat, one of the things also is that cotton serves the same purpose as what I just showed you before now. Again, some people might be asking, how does this, lead us to technology and the AI and all these things? Please just follow the story. I am not here to teach. I'm just here to tell you. In fact, throughout Daipods is going to be storytelling, because we have discovered that that's the better method of trying to impart knowledge. Because if I kind of start defining first industrial revolution, you go to Wikipedia, I pick some things, I go to ChatGPT and all that, I'm going to be confusing you more if I don't bring it down to just a story. Now, this became an industry. It is still an industry today. Okay. The clothes you wear and everything is coming from different sources now, not only cotton and furs. There are a lot of organic and inorganic materials that are used now. But this is not a class for industrial chemistry, and we're going to focus on why we are here. So the question now is, you see, what about the process? If you look at the slide now, we have talked about the raw material. Let's now talk about the process. So before now, you see that the process that someone is using hand to knit something. So if you have heard of cottage industry, cottage industry started with the women, that actually does the finished product. So they get this wool, they kind of knit it into products, and they go to the market to sell the material and everything. And because it could be boring, what you call cottage is that these women, if there are neighbors, you can see 5 neighbors coming together to gist why they are knitting this thing. Of course, it's common place in old movies. You see them coming together so that they won't get bored. They keep gisting from morning to night. At the end of the day, they produce raw materials for what you use for article of clothing. Now, that is what is actually interesting in this story. So this is the process that brought about the first industrial revolution. How, you might ask? Now, let us look at this picture. Now, at some point, they recognize that humanity recognized that using hand alone might not be able to. So they kind of created a machine that use both your leg. I think it is still done in Nigeria today. Talking about kente material, if you go to the West, they still do that manual. There is a machine that you match, and then the weave will be going from one end to the other. And so it is faster, right? Now, the question is that sustainable? Remember, it's a human being that is matching, and sometimes you might develop muscle pull or something. So you see, what happens is that the more you solve problem, you create another one. The backache and all that, there are a lot of health issues that came with it. So man started asking again, must we be matching this thing and using our hands? That's what they call manual, like, right? So is there no way these things can be made? Because at that time there has been proliferation of different kinds of mechanical tools that are used in the farm, the hoe, and all that. So that question, like, okay, can we replace this with a form of engine? The answer is yes. So the first engine is what we call the steam engine. And that steam engine was actually developed to replace this manual way of knitting this, so they can see how the revolution started, right? So instead of using your leg to be matching and using your throwing the thing from left to right, right to left, and everything, the steam engine came into power. How does steam engine work, you might ask? It uses wood. Of course, firewood now. Yes. So we are not the first that use firewood. Firewood became a source of fuel. So whenever you hear fuel, it's not really um, petrol. In this, petrol is actually a type of fuel. Fuel is anything that can produce heat. Okay, take it from me today. So the first set of fuel was wood, because from the ancient days, they saw that when there is this particular stone that if you actually apply friction, it will bring up smoke, and then eventually it will bring up flame, and then they use it to warm their homes and everything. So fire is a very, very good servant. Of course, you know that sometimes it can be a bad master as well, but that's not why we are here. Now, what happened? People were cooking. Sometimes when you cook, you see that the pot is dancing. The pot lid, the cover, or you call cover, might be dancing. So it is discovered that steam equally has power, because it can only be dancing because you heated it up. When the thing cools down, the pot does not dance. So what it means that the water vapor, okay, produces some form of force. So that dancing means that it is pushing the pot up, but the gravity, because of the weight of the lead, it tries to come back again and everything. So it keeps dancing. So scientists decide to say, oh, can we apply this? So if you confine that particular steam, they call it steam, what we call water vapor, in an enclosed this thing, it will produce enough force. So what happens is that use wood to boil steam, to boil water, let me just call it. The water produces steam, and then the steam is used to drive engine. That is what you are seeing happening at the top right hand side here. Therefore, human no longer need to use their legs and their hands to be pushing all this thing. So you could see this is what resulted into what we call the first industrial revolution, because it is a discovery that changed the way we do things. So moving from, you can see the names listed there: spinning jenny, water frame, spinning wool, and cutting gin. These are different aliases that are given to this same machine. So what happens is that, can we apply this same principle in a more powerful machine? The answer is yes. So this led to what we call locomotive engine. So what you refer to as locomotive engine is the first engine that the first train, train now, the first set of train that was discovered was driven by locomotive engine. The difference between locomotive engine and the what I told you is that it is still water, it is still steam, But if you can see, the fuel, okay, changed from wood to coal. So it was discovered that coal equally burns and can produce even a better heat than wood. So for trains, we now use what? The coal to boil the same steam engine that will drive the locomotive engine of a train. Okay, so this now, it has worked in the spinning wheel, it has worked in the locomotive engine of a train, it became industrial. Now people were now, that's why you hear industrial revolution. So a lot of industries were already existing, but some of these processes were not driven by machine. So this actually gained traction. So now let's move to the next one. You now see that when we talk about moving to the cities those days, this is what it looks like. If you are in the county, in the local region and everything, you wouldn't see anything like that. So people were migrating to go and get work, in any of these factories, either you are among those that are packing coal. Remember ships also. So when we are not talking about this thing in isolation. You can see how the story started changing, from spinning engine to locomotive engine in train, now ship. If you look at the olden day ship, they use coal, and the coal will drive what we call propeller. And the propeller will now be, propeller is like a fan that, depending on the configuration, it will rotate and propel the whatever. It can be a ship, it can be anything, through the water. Okay, so now even in the cities, this became, you can see, once you solve a problem in civilization, you create another one. So some of you that might be talking, that might have heard something about labor laws before now, it came from, of course, there was a revolution as well, because you can see that the city became, polluted. People were working from morning till night. There was not, now you have something like 9 to 5 and everything. People are working from morning till night, just to make sure that the steam engine of whatever, whether it's a locomotive engine or that of a ship or that of a factory, keeps on this thing. So at the end of this is not a class for human resources, but I just have to mention it. So the cities were largely polluted because, coal is a fossil fuel and does not really burn completely. There's a reason why I'm saying it, because it's going to, come up again. Now, that is the first industrial revolution. Let us talk about the second industrial revolution. The second industrial revolution, brought about three things in particular, but one is standing out. I want us to note it, okay? Mass production, assembly line, and then the last one is electrical energy. So just the way steam engine marked the first industrial revolution, if there is a singular factor that marked the second industrial revolution, it is what? Electrical energy. So I want us to note that. But let us go to the story just like the first one. Now, what happened is that because of the steam engine and everything, there are propellers. Now, there is possibility. Now you can transfer one thing from one end of the factory to another end of the factory using what we call a conveyor belt. So that idea of conveyor belt was not there because there was no steam engine that can drive such. But when the conveyor belt came into existence, the idea of assembly line came into place, which is what we call mass production, meaning that there will be an assembly unit. A collection of assembly units is what we call assembly line. So in each unit is focused on, this is where the term division of labor came into being for the first time. Labor were now divided because before now, one person would do process A, process B, process C, process D, turning raw material into product. But in the assembly line, a unit will be responsible for process A. Another unit, they will pass it to another unit that will be responsible for process. So That passing is moving from one unit to another unit is called an assembly line. So at the end of the day, the raw material will come out. So you are focused on doing one thing. That's division of labor, you know. And then we start having shift and all that. So you can see how this is what we call mass production, even though you see it is this kind of mass production that robots are mimicking today. So you can see we did not just fall from sky. Everything you see today has what? A history. Now, steel revolution, okay, because you now have this fuel that can even heat things up. Coal, which is now better than firewood, is now used to what? Even melt, metals. Remember, metals existed before this period. That's not what we are trying to say here. But if you look at history, the best you can do with a metal is to produce a sword, a shield, a spoon, a pot, and all that. Yes, these are metal. So metal had been discovered. But before now, you cannot have like a pipe, like large metals. That was why when this metal revolution came into being, people can now even build skyscrapers. That's why you didn't have skyscrapers in history, right? It is when, we can actually do, use metal to form some form of pillars. They can use it to do foundations and everything. So when we talk about steel revolution, we're not talking about discovery of steel. We're talking about using steel for bigger, you cannot have pipelines, you can have different parts rather than assembling different parts and using rivets or welding or something. So with these two now, you could see that we needed what? New sources of energy. Follow the story. Now, the new sources of energy now is that, okay, coal is doing well, but are there other things? The likes of Rockefeller discovered kerosene. Okay, this is not a story again of entrepreneur, because Rockefeller is one of the richest people in the world, and one of these new energy sources is one of the things that he actually, you know, played very, very big role in the history of man. And that was why even up to today, Rockefeller would have still remained the richest man. His oil company called Standard Oil started with only kerosene. That time, we didn't know about diesel, we didn't know about petrol. It was only kerosene. So when you hear headlamp, okay, for cars, that name lamp came from the first, the item that is used to lit up a place when it is dark. So they even hung it in streets, okay? They used it for street lights and everything. So people started with oil, and then it was actually, oil was there before, but it was Rockefeller that actually revolutionized it into kerosene, what we call kerosene today. And it was kerosene that you, of course, at that time, when you hear refinery, they are simply refining crude oil to produce kerosene. And they didn't even discover that there was something like, petrol, PMS and all that, but that was then. So, so the fossil fuel, you can see that the fossil fuel, petroleum and other chemicals came into being. So we are no longer talking about coal. Now, that was how coal started dying natural death, and that led to the rise of other fossil fuel. Coal, mind you, is also a fossil fuel. But when I'm talking about other fossil fuel now, I am talking of the liquid version of fossil fuel, starting from kerosene and other sources. Okay. Now, instead of steam engine, we now have what we call internal combustion engine. Okay. Meaning that we are now replacing that water that we used to boil, okay, with the chemical that has the ability to propel, okay, it's not really propel now, it is converting linear motion to rotary motion, and that is what we call internal combustion engine. You have your shafts, crankshaft, so you can see a demonstration of it below where we wrote internal combustion engine. So this is actually the principle behind all our cars today, whether it is using CNG or whether it's using petrol or whether it's using diesel. So you could see how some of these things were discovered. So what happens is that the vapor, okay, I'll call it gas now. I'll stop using vapor. The gas now is more efficient than water vapor. So it can drive heavy engines, okay? And that was how we now have all the engine, V6, V6, how many cylinder, and what is cylinder? Cylinder is simply the thing that is doing the same job, that is confining, making sure that the gas does not escape, so that that gas will push, the crankshaft, to be rotating the engine. Now, while this was going on as well, something important happened. For the first time, you know, there was this man with his, will I call it an apprentice. I don't know whether they've started using mentor and this thing that time. The name of the man is Thomas Edison, and the guy that was under him is Tesla. So Thomas Edison kept doing an experiment and all that. Remember, people already know lights, right? Coming from kerosene, I just mentioned that. Thomas Edison one day, I don't know whether it's accidental or something, somehow they had a breakthrough. Okay, the bulb they were using produced lights. And this was magical because everybody knew kerosene. Everybody knew that you can produce this thing with an oil. But for light to be coming from virtually nothing, like, electricity, you cannot see it, you cannot touch it. It was fascinating as of then. It was like magic. How can this light come up? How can this bulb come up? What is driving it? Okay, so the name given to that particular energy is electricity. So for the first time, we are now having light that is coming from an unknown energy, and that unknown energy is what we know today as electricity. Okay, so this heralded what we call, pre-automation era, because right now you are now seeing, now you can see that the mechanical part has been there. Now you are now seeing electrical parts coming in, mechanical and chemical. You can see how we develop some of these courses. We study the mechanical engineering, chemical engineering, this one, this one. So now electricity is coming into the play, and you are going to see how we enter the digital era because of this. If there was no discovery of electricity, ladies and gentlemen, we are not going to be talking about computers today, and we are going to make it clear, abundantly clear, tomorrow when we delve into the actual Daipods. So what is the outcome? We began to see reduction in human intervention. We began to see steam engine phase out, and internal, you can't really see steam engine today. Okay, now you know why. Okay, so that marked the second industrial revolution. So recapping, first industrial revolution was what? Steam engine. Second industrial revolution, electricity, other this thing. But electricity stands out. If anybody asks you what marks the second industrial revolution, because among all these things we are having transition, but it is something very, very, very noble, that came out at that point. Now let us answer the question, how did we move into the third industrial revolution? In the third industrial revolution, we now enter the era of automation proper. And if there is one singular thing that marks the third industrial revolution, is what? The computer system. Yes, and electronics. Now, you know that we are going to talk about histories of computer and, the punch cards and everything. I'm going to make it, very clear tomorrow, but I want you to equally follow the story. At some point, computer used to be what? Mechanical device, of abacus, differential machine. I'm going to show you pictures of all these things tomorrow. But let's focus on what we are here for. At some point, you had a vacuum tube. What does vacuum tube does? It comes on and it goes off. There are different, logics. I'm not going to go deeper into logical gates, but there are certain things that make it come on, and there are certain things that make it go off, right? Now, and that thing is electricity. That's the truth. You see, I'm linking the thing now. That thing that's making it go off and on is electricity. And that electricity is transfer of electron. Okay, so we are now coming to the era of electron. Whenever any device that can bring about transfer of electron from one point to another is electronics, right? So that was what happened. Let us go to the story. Now, the computer system, okay, came into being because we had had the likes of mechanical devices like punch card, differential engine, and so on and so forth. There is this guy called Charles Babbage. If they ask you who is the father of computer science, it's Charles Babbage because he conceived the idea of commands. Even though you might not see him as somebody that actually wrote the program, but you see that idea of giving something command and it respects your command and follows order came from. We are going to see all these things, right? Because I said we are cleaning this up from the fundamental. There's nothing you are not jumping anything. Okay. So tomorrow we are going to talk about it. So the computer system, okay, kind of replaced. First of all, we started with mechanical, then we did electromechanical before we moved to electronics. So when it came to the idea of vacuum tube, it is the first electronic computer. That's why it is called the first generation computer, not the first computing device. Please, sometimes this thing can be confusing. There have been punch cards before then, but when you talk about the first electronic computer, because if you want to define computer today, you're going to say it's an electronic device. So I hope you are getting that. So there's a computer called ENIAC. We are going to see a picture of ENIAC tomorrow. Okay, so it's kind of started revolutionary. It can now do faster calculation. Computer was not built to show you all these videos, fancy videos you are watching now. No, it was specifically built for computation. Okay, using ones and zeros, what we call binary code. But don't worry, we are going to talk about that. So in the third industrial revolution, the invention of all this ENIAC code machine and everything changed the way things are done. You see a lot of automations that are done starting from the calculation and all that, and even moved into the internet era. There's something they call Morse code. We are going to equally see Morse code. You know, I don't want to confuse, but I just want you to understand how things move. Morse code was like a device that is used to transfer information, messages. They call it encoding and decoding. So during the war, I want to send message across to, you know, maybe battalion or the people in the war front. You don't want the enemy to intercept the message. So there is what they call encoding and decoding. And that was the first idea of transferring information over a long distance, which eventually, after the war, it was repurposed, and we have what we call today internet, where coaxial cable, like copper cable, is now used to do the same thing. We are going to come to that again. So internet, the computer and the internet marked the third industrial revolution. Okay, because now we have an electronic device that can process data at a very fast pace and all. We are going to see all those things. Okay, now look at this table. You see how we have moved. We have calendar, we have this, we have that, jotter and everything. Just watch what is going to happen. I'm going to play it again. Everything is disappearing. Notice board, you now have notes, you now have pictures, newspapers, and everything. Your radio, your books, your camera, your phone, and everything is turning into apps. And all of a sudden, this is what we have today. So when you have one device, having one device is equivalent to having everything on this table. I'm playing it again. So you have your fax machine, your radio. We began to do these things because the computer, was discovered to have this unique ability to process information. If you check, everything that is on this table is all about information. And that is why it is called today IT. Okay, information what? Technology. If you like, ICT, information communication technology. Now, let us look at, how we got to internet. Look at how the world was looking in 1980 something. You will see the first cable, just observe the first cable, Southern America, then North America was connected. So this is what we have today. Okay, you can see how everything So what you are seeing now, okay, let me pause here. Sorry. Okay, so I want to pause somewhere. Okay, I can pause. All right, see, you can see there was no subsea cable. You can see one moving from America to South America. Then you start seeing them and all that, you see. So, okay, so let me pause here. Now, let me explain what is happening here. You see, what you call internet today is just a connection of different computers scattered all over the world. So your personal computer is connected to another computer called what? A server through, an interconnection. But we're going to talk about it also in Daipods. That's why I say we are going to, don't think about anything yet. I'm going to clearly define how these things work. Okay, there's no jumping of anything. So what you're seeing here now is what we call subsea. And today, okay, I want to, because sometimes you hear certain terms, people are just speaking grammar, yeah, fiber optics, subsea cable, blah, blah. See, forget about those things. Let me tell you what happened. At some point, electrons was transferred through coaxial cable, what we call what? Copper wires and everything. Okay. Remember I said this whole idea of transferring information over a long distance started with the war. And after the war, we proposed it to exchanging messages between two normal human beings that are not, military. So at that point, what we are using is wired connection. Okay, so you have networking. There's what they call WAN and there's what they call LAN. These are the terms that you need to start learning today. LAN is LAN, which is local area network. Example of it is that if you are in an office, we can have a server and we connect all the computers to the server. Okay, I don't want to confuse anybody. What is a server? A server is another computer. Let nobody tell you anything. A server is just another computer. The difference between a server and your own laptop is that the server has more computing power and has more storage space. For instance, you can be struggling with 4 gig RAM, 8 gig RAM, 16 gig RAM. A server can have up to 32 gig RAM, and even today, there is a server that Kodak is expecting is 400 and something gig RAM. Oh. I'm not talking of storage space. Okay, so it is powerful. What it does is that it connects. Okay, it helps to serve. Okay, I think, yeah, let me use that because it's simpler, because when you remember the name, you will equally understand what it does. It serves every computer that is connected to its information. Remember, we were talking about IT. So the server has this information and shares it across. So if three of us are in the same organization, I don't need to use flash drive, copy something, go to your system. All I need to do is drop it in the server. The other person can see it. So the server is connected and three of us can see the server, and server can just be like, okay, don't worry, I'm going to show you how all this setup, so I don't want to confuse anybody yet. So you see, what the picture you are seeing today here now is that these servers, okay, are built in they are installed in what we refer today as what? Data centers. Okay, so what you refer to as internet is simply when you use your phone and click www.something.com, right? You are asking to be served an information. So what you are saying is, what you are doing is a request, and that request will go out with two addresses. One, your own, just like you're writing letter. When you're writing letter, you write your own address, and of course it might be a letterhead or something, and then the address of the person that the letter is targeting, so that when the person wants to respond to you, you simply go to the letterhead or your own address and use it to his own envelope. So that's the principle that is used. So when you send out this request on a browser, you type www.something.com. Now you are now saying, I want you to locate this particular information somewhere in the world. There is a server that has this information. Go locate it bring it back to me. That is simply what you are doing when you say browsing. So what helps you do this thing now is that, let me create a scenario. When you do it, if you have a wireless connection, it means you must have an MTN Wi-Fi close to you, right? Or you have another router, whatever. It is called a modem. Anything that connects you to the internet is called a modem. There are other devices like switches and even the router. We are going to come to that. The difference between a modem, a switch, and a router. They are not the same thing. But the name, the correct name for anything that links you to the internet is a modem. That is why MTN is a service provider. So when they give you their modem, you buy their SIM card and you know, when you buy data, what they simply do is that they will give you access. Okay, so now this is a wireless communication. You connect to the modem will connect you to the nearest cellular, which is like a tower, or you call mast. That mast is connected to a cable. That cable is connected you sorry, that cable is connecting you what we call terrestrial. You see them digging grounds. Okay, MTN is not the one that provides the information alone. MTN is a service provider. They provide you that opportunity to connect to these things that you're looking at the slide now. So what you're looking at the slide now, there are companies, they don't even advertise. They are the big boys that play. The like of TATA, Tata. Some people can call it Tata. And they build the core, what they call internet backbone. So when you hear internet backbone, that's what you're looking at. Okay, because they are actually the one that connects continent to continent. So right now they have replaced coaxial cable with what we call fiber, because they have actually realized that fiber is more efficient, right? So I'm not going to talk about fiber now. When we come to online operation, we're going to talk about fiber. Okay, so that's what I wanted to clarify. Okay, so this is what you call internet. Internet is simply two things. Your connection is one, the data you are looking for is two. Your connection is what you call connectivity, buying data, and all those kind of things. The Netflix movie you want to watch is somewhere in the world. It's in a server seated there in a data center. So your connectivity gives you access for you to watch the YouTube video and all that. So that is how it actually works. So you can see how everything has changed. So the computer and the internet revolutionized the way we do things, and that is what has led to the current fourth industrial revolution that all of us are in. So this is our own. Okay, we might not have met the first, we might not have met the second, we might have used the third, but we are experiencing ourselves the fourth industrial revolution. And what is it? Fourth industrial revolution is marked by what we call cyber physical system. Okay, now just like you have steam engine in the first one, electricity in the second one, computer in the third one. Okay, actually the third one enabled the fourth one. So it was not like more like invention, so to say. You understand? But we can still refer to it as a revolution because a lot of things have changed in our lifetime. So what happened? Some people will be asking, what do you mean by cyber physical, blah, blah, blah? It's simple. There is nature and there is a digital. There's a natural world and there's a digital world. This fourth industrial revolution has merged the natural world and the digital world together. So all of us are on this call. We can be referred to as a digital imprint. Sorry to say that, but yeah, you're a human being, but you have become digital. I'll give you an example. If you have a bank account, okay, what matters in that your bank account is one, the protection of that particular account. If somebody can hack it, there's no need for bank account. Meaning that everything about you in that bank is digital. If I hack that digital imprint, sorry, I can take your money. So that's what you call account number B. Fine. If you go to the bank and tell them, oh, my account number, blah, 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 they give you ATM and all that, and you don't put the right PIN, even if you are the owner of the account, you are not going to access your money because the ATM machine only understands the smart chip and the pin that goes along with it, which is a factor authentication. Now we're talking about two-factor authentication. All those things, you can see that a man is now a digital being. People are telling you to like their pages, subscribe, follow them, and everything. That is a digital currency. That is why a lot of people are taking to shooting skits, because so some people are into tech, but they don't know that they are into tech. What the person is trying to grow is his digital currency. You know, um, you can say, oh, you're following Emanuela and everything. There's no Emanuela if the account is hacked. You can see recently a lot of celebrity accounts were shut down and they will stop earning if they suspend your account. And they are not suspending you, they are suspending the account, right? So you have your phone, everybody have their phone. You can see you are talking to, I am talking to you over a far distance and all that. You can see that I don't need to be there. Okay, you dialed in. If you're not supposed to be in this call, probably you might use a password to remove it from the call. Everything digital. You understand? So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the world you are living in. So there are things you can see. That's your phone, the building, the chair, the furniture, and all that. But if they give you a digital eye to show you the level of information that is only your chat alone, or Facebook and everything, that is transferred wirelessly, is enough to show you what is going on in the world today. So this is your reality. Welcome to your reality. So I'm going to be rounding up this call. Today we are going to do just 1 hour because I have a 3 p.m. meeting. So this is 2:51. So I'm rounding off in the next 3 minutes. So this is where we are today, cyber physical interaction. So you can see those that joined us earlier might be asking, why did we start with a ship? You can see why we started, because nobody should confuse anybody, on what this whole thing is all about. Nobody. That is why you are in code house. Sorry, yeah, that's why you are in KodeCamp. This is one thing that we are going to do very well, to clean up some of these gray areas that is confusing, so that some people say, oh, I don't know how to, I've not used the system before. You can see this class does not look any strange. And this is the first time we're having Daipods in the code camp. And it's because of a reason. We have kind of built experience over the years. So what defines the current industry 4.0? Now you talk about robotics, simulation, system integration, Internet of Things, cyber security, cloud computing, additive manufacturing, augmented reality, big data. Okay, here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Please, I am not doing this so that you start preparing for first industrial revolution. A lot of our schools today are still very much traditional and conventional. They will not tell you all these things. Things have changed. And one of the things Coders wants to do is to make it clear to you that things have actually changed. And you need to hop on to this journey and, get ready. We are not interested in what you do today. We are interested in your future. And that is why we are going to talk about the future of work. Things have changed. If you go to consultancy.eu, you get this picture. You can see technology is now everywhere. 6 billion people have smartphones, 6 billion plus. There is a tsunami of data, and that is why you can have all the AI you can have today. And of course, you know that the computing power is equally improving. There is change in the nature of the career. For those that, like white collar, things are changing. You can see Microsoft just sacked 3,000, is it 6,000 people after they sacked 3,000 people after they sacked, is it 9,000 people? Which other company? I think a lot of people are. The truth is that actually, actually, um, don't be afraid of the sack. But you need to be smart enough to know that the only thing that is happening is that the job nature is changing. And if you are smart and follow the likes of KodeCamp and everything, you fit in. So there's nothing to fear. That's one thing I want to assure you. Diversity in generational changes. You can see there was baby bloopers. There is great generation. There is a generation. Is it generation X? And then after generation X, it was followed by um, millennials, and now we have Gen Z. So if you think that things will be done, for instance, musicians that are releasing album are now talking about streaming. No, if you like, keep on releasing record and trying to let people buy it and play it on the radio. Okay, you can see a lot of things are changing. Of course, I talked about jobs that are vulnerable, explosion of explosion in contingent work, what we call gig economy, and then AI is equally coming to disrupt everything. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am rounding off. So the evolution of employee, okay, all the one in white is the past. The one in lemon is the future. You work 9 to 5 in the past. Now you're going to get a job that you're going to be doing from working from anywhere. You have a corporate office. You can work, anywhere in the world. You have what? Use your equipment in the office to provide equipment. Now you have small devices that you can install your mobile app, and you can sync your mobile app, authenticator, blah blah blah. Even companies are going mobile as well. Okay, just to fit in. You know, in the past, if the employee is focusing on the input, you need to look at what you focus on the what outputs. Um, People interested in climbing the corporate ladder, now people are interested in solving problems and becoming wealthy. Predefined work, but you can actually define your own work and customize it as well. You know, People hold information in the past, now people share information. Sometimes you have no voice, you have become a leader. Rely on email. Now you have a lot of collaborative tools, Teams, you have Google Meet, you have Slack. Of course, we are using Discord. You can see. Imagine if it's only email. I don't know how we can coordinate. Now we are on Zoom. This is an example. Sometimes it's knowledge focus, is adaptive learning. So, having said all this, ladies and gentlemen, Code House have come up with an idea of Outmage. This is our tech talent pipeline. O stands for orientation, and that's what we are doing. Our orientation is not that orientation people sit down in one place and have a motivational speaker come speak to them. We have training. I'm sure you have selected your own. You are going to go through mentorship, you are going to go through internship, and of course, job placement. And you can see it is with this, our policy, that Coda had decided to introduce Daipods to CodeCamp 5.0. So, ladies and gentlemen, Daipods is a perfect launch into a fulfilling tech career. With that, you can do any of all the, software, IT, DevOps, and all that. So, what is Daipods? I left this thing for the last so that it will stick. Dipod is an acronym. Okay, so tomorrow we are going to start with the letter D, and the letter D is digital literacy fundamental, where we are going to talk about computer science appreciation for absolute beginners. A, we are going to talk about application and operations, understanding and using it to see. It is not those kind of roadside um, training. Don't worry, when you enter, you understand. Information management, we cannot deal without data today. So information management, sourcing, collecting, organizing, visualizing information using variety of technology programs. Then we talk about solving problems and critical thinking. If you can't solve problem and you cannot build any app, you cannot write any algorithm, you won't even understand how the programming language works. So you need to put up that thinking cap, right? And then solve problem, so functionally and also technically. Then we have an online communication research. Of course, everything has to be done. I said, oh, come to we talk about fiber optics and everything. You need to understand everything about internet, browser, and all that. Then have digital citizenship, how you can protect your information and how you can avoid being a bully, because internet has become a continent of its own, and you need to be a very good citizen of that continent. We are all in it together. And lastly, soft skill, which has to do with developing interpersonal skill to successfully navigate the technical and social business environment. Ladies and gentlemen, this is 2:59, I'll end here and then I'll jump on in another meeting. Thank you very much. I hope I see you today. Sorry, see you tomorrow, 2 p.m. We are going to run it for 2 hours, starting with the letter D, Digital Literacy Fundamental. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Injalerians. I'm sure that was, from the comments alone, that was a wonderful session. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. We'll meet tomorrow for the digital literacy fundamentals by 2 p.m. Same time, same link. So all through Daipods, we're going to be using the same Discord link. So you can make sure, do well to just save that somewhere so you can always have access to it. The video will be uploaded on YouTube shortly. So once it's available, a post will be made about that. Thank you very much, everyone, and do have a wonderful day ahead. Bye.